Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel. Chelsea Twitter has become an incredibly toxic place once again. We had last week something to keep our minds occupied with positivity. We had Enzo Fernandez signing, we had deadline day drama, the final week of the transfer window drama. We forgot that Chelsea's results were poor. We forgot that we'd only scored 2 goals in the last 6 league games. We forgot that we cannot buy a win for love nor money, nor can we buy entertainment when we watch Chelsea play. All of a sudden, the weekend is over. We get over the 0-0 draw against Fulham, and all of a sudden, Twitter becomes the toxic haven that it's always been, but it is absolutely amplified by the fact that there was no football to look forward to. Chelsea have got nothing going on in midweek, and how we would dream of an FA Cup replay even at this moment in time. Today's video, we are going to react, or I am going to react to your biggest problems right now at Chelsea Football Club. Apologies for the bloodshot eyes. There was a fly deciding to habituate in my face today, but I put out on Twitter, guys, tweet me your biggest issues with Chelsea FC right now. 210,000 Twitter impressions later, nearly 1,000 replies from you guys, and apparently there are problems to be had at Chelsea Football Club, which I'm not going to lie to you, there is. As much as there was the buzz and the excitement of all of these new signings, that in itself, I'm going to throw one out there straight away. That in itself is a problem. We're also going to hear from Eunice Talks Football in this video about his biggest problem right now at Chelsea Football Club, so stay tuned till later on in the video for that one. But the first one that I want to throw out there, and again, this isn't just a let's all bitch and moan about Chelsea video. I want to try and rationalise this here. I want to try and put into perspective why certain things may well be perceived as problems, and are they as big of an issue as we are potentially making them out to be. The biggest problem right now is that in order for us to get results immediately, which is the expectation that we have at Chelsea Football Club, we need to be very aware and understand that with the amount of signings that Chelsea have made, there is this thing that you put in your hair. It's called gel. The word works the same way when it comes to players learning to play together. People need to start learning the language. Enzo Fernandez doesn't speak English. He needs to speak English, which is the predominant language that the Chelsea squad speaks, despite the fact that already he's had a wonderful opening game as a Chelsea player. It didn't look as though the English problem that he has in terms of speaking and understanding, it didn't really translate to a negative performance. But we have to be aware that with so many new players coming in, they need to learn how to play together. Combinations of play between these exciting new players, they don't all just naturally happen overnight. We've got to do work on the training ground, and it may well take some time. So many use so much energy on being so nasty and negative. Some fans would moan about the smallest things, like how a player tied his shoelaces, but would then praise someone else for doing the same thing. A shoe doesn't fit all, focus on the ones they always hate. One thing I've understood about football fans on social media is that being fickle it's what comes with the territory. People are going to like one thing one minute, they're going to like another thing another. I'm a prime example of this. One game, I'll say that Kai Havertz is the best thing since sliced bread because he scores an 89th minute winner against Newcastle. The next game, he misses 3 open goals, and I'm saying that Chelsea need to not play him again and get another striker. That is how football works. It is a reactionary sport. It is why we love it so much, because what it does is it creates a roller coaster of emotions that very few things that as human beings we can attach ourselves to in life, very few things offer the same dopamine level of hits that following your football club does. As a result of this, you get polar opposites. You get positives and you get negatives. Unfortunately, in the process of YouTube being available, Twitter being available, various other social platforms being available too, the voice of concern or praise is amplified massively to the players. Now, this is the thing that I want to discuss here as well. When it comes to the negative energy that Twitter especially can bring, best believe that footballers are on these apps. Yes, they've got accounts. Yes, some players do not manage their own social media accounts, but there are ways in which we can communicate our frustration, sadness, anger that do not have to become such direct, personal, abusive messages. So if I was to rank and react to what Carefree Youth has said here, I would say that the nasty, negative energy, especially the word nasty, is one of the biggest problems that we have at Chelsea Football Club, because if you don't believe your death threats towards a certain player or wishing that this player would just never play for Chelsea again, if you think that doesn't affect the players, it does. As a football pundit, I'm trying to find ways to be more progressive and balanced when it comes to my criticism. I want to be able to say what I'm thinking, but at the same time, I don't just want to attack on players because everyone does have bad days. We've got to figure out a way altogether that we can actually learn how to express ourselves in our times of disgust, anger and sadness as a result of Chelsea playing poorly. So this reply is from Matt Williams. He says, negative fans, you can see the repeating pattern here, and a proper striker with clinical instincts. This again to me is a massive problem at Chelsea Football Club right now. So if I was to put it on a scale, the fact that we don't have a clinical finisher at the club would go very, very close to the top of the big problem list at Chelsea Football Club. We need to be far more clinical, and that is not just in the striking positions. We also need to be more clinical with the timing of final passes. Enzo Fernandez has come in, and I think he immediately elevates that. We also need to be quicker with crossing the ball. Reece James coming back, Ben Chilwell coming back, two very established crossers of the ball, two players that can get to the byline and cut back inside. This will hopefully solve the problems. So, as much as it's okay to address the problems that we have right now at Chelsea Football Club, solutions, I also think with a lot of them, are very close to home. Now we're going to go and see what our boy Eunice has got to say.
So, our biggest concern at Chelsea Football Club right now, for me, it's two birds, one stone. Two issues that basically make one. I've got my initial sentiment from when Graham Potter joined the club, where I did say I hoped this job wasn't going to be too big for him. My gut just tells me, in the way that I see the situation, I just feel like maybe this job is too big for him.
So we can see there that Eunice is pretty clear that maybe Graham Potter does not quite have enough to be able to manage at this level. And I think that's a very, very fair point. At this moment in time, you look at the managerial career. You've got Swansea, you've got Ostersund, you've got Brighton. Chelsea are ever so slightly a different calibre to those teams. But once again, we've employed the man. We've given him a very, very long contract, a bit like all the players we've just recently signed.
And ultimately, alongside that, we know there are players in this squad that don't belong at Chelsea Football Club in terms of the level and in terms of the standard. They need to be moved on. And I feel like once we do that and we keep bringing in quality like we did in the January window, I feel like the overall level of the team will increase. But it's about getting them up to a standard and making sure we can maintain the levels at Chelsea Football Club. So those two things, I think, go hand in hand. Being able to change a lot of these players, but also being able to manage those players that are in the team and doing so correctly. You do those two together and I feel like we will get ourselves back on our feet.
So we've at least got to give him an opportunity, in my opinion, between now and the end of the season, with players coming back from injury, with a plethora of new signings coming through the door as well, multiple options to choose from. We got to give him a go. And then, of course, we have got the multiple players, or a couple of players, who may not just be good enough for Chelsea Football Club. Between now and the end of the season, we are going to see. I think there's no doubt in my mind Graham Potter needs to trim down this squad for the beginning of next season. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to register all of the new players that we've bought in. We've literally bought an entire new squad, basically. So if people don't up their games between now and the end of the season, and obviously a lot of people on social media are vocal about Mount, a lot of people vocal about Kai Havertz too, which is very fair at this moment due to the performances. Maybe Gallagher is one of those names as well. I agree with Eunice to an extent. I definitely think there is definitely some performances that have to improve, otherwise players are going out the door. And regardless, players will be going out the door, but it might be some of them that maybe at the beginning of this season we wouldn't have expected. Alright, so I knew at one stage or another a comment like this one was going to arise. And don't worry, I'm not just going to run away from the fact that a lot of people recently have been heavily criticising Kai Havertz and Mason Mount. So, Thomas Ayres has said, 1 or 2, the main issue at Chelsea isn't a specific player. It's the fact that players who are not performing good enough at all continue to start. However, that is obvious, but the clear lack of scouting that went into our last 2 windows, with only Badiashile and Felix looking good. The first bit, yes, I do believe there are certain players in recent weeks, and maybe even months, continue to play even if performances have not been good enough. However, we also need to remember a lot of injuries have hampered the ability to be able to bring in replacements. Looking at the fact that only Badiashile and João Felix have been good, if you use that as the logic, João Felix got sent off the only time he ever played for Chelsea. So with that logic being used, Badiashile is the only good player. That is writing off this window before we've even given these players a chance to perform. Perspective and time. That is one thing that we absolutely as fans need to get significantly better with. So we've also got Kuba, I'm still okay, saying decision making in front of the penalty area and lack of support from our wingbacks. Cucurella is a huge disappointment and neither Aspi or Chalobah can provide an offensive support like Chile and Reece can. Mount and Havertz suck recently, but they have zero support from the fans. People have always given me stick saying that, oh, you don't give any criticism to the English players. There might be an element of truth in this, I'll be honest. I think because I really love Mason Mount as a footballer, it's taken me a lot longer to call out the negative performances and the poor form than it may have done for some other people. And that's absolutely fine, because the one thing that is absolutely allowed with football fans, tribalism, whatever it may be, you're allowed to have your favourite players. Until recently, yes, I kept picking Mount in my starting 11s. Yes, maybe I would be more reluctant to give direct criticism to a Conor Gallagher or a Mason Mount because I like the players. I like the people. Yes, there is an element of that in terms of my bias, but at the same time, I have called a spade in recent weeks. Mount has been poor. Havertz has been poor. I've called it out and I've said that they need to be given some time on the sidelines to allow for new players to come in and be able to give it a go, because at the end of the day, no one's bigger than the club. Whether we all have our favourite players or not, it doesn't mean that week after week they deserve to start. Is Graham Potter plays Kai as striker when he has Fofana. He came on in second half against Fulham and did something which Kai failed to do so far in the season. Again, there's very little context behind these points here. Are we talking about rounding the goalkeeper? Because David Fofana did round the keeper, but he also didn't score. It was a good clearance off the line from Tim Ream. But yes, I think at the moment it is clear to see that Chelsea fans do have a problem with Kai Havertz. I have a problem with Kai Havertz. He doesn't score enough. He's not a striker. And I think if there is a striker at the club who Chelsea have kept at the club during this transfer window just gone, we didn't loan Fofana out. I'm sure there were opportunities to do so. The way that we resolve this is to stop playing Kai Havertz as a striker and give Fofana a chance. Otherwise, what are we doing? Holding Fofana back for the rest of this season when we could have loaned him out? What's the point in not trying a proper striker in the striker's position? I agree. And another reason why I wanted to make this video, as much as I also feel the fact that there are problems right now at Chelsea Football Club, because I talk about Chelsea Football Club every single day, I do want to say something about the takes regarding the owners. This comes from Clint Yagon. The board and the owner. The transfer decisions are ridiculous and sacking of Tuchel was unacceptable. Hiring Potter and giving him a 6-year contract was the worst decision ever since I started supporting this wonderful football club. Now, yesterday, I did a live stream where I spoke with Eunice about Graham Potter and whether or not he should still be the Chelsea manager, because as I started this video with, since all the excitement of the transfers has died down, the Potter out noise has got louder and louder, which has made me want to make this video where I actually look at what you guys think the problems are and give my opinions on it. We needed to do a rebuild. A rebuild at football clubs can sometimes take so long. When you look at the profile of players that we have brought in, we have addressed positions that we desperately needed to address, other than at this point potentially the striker and the goalkeeper. So, how can we go ahead and say that the transfer decisions are ridiculous? How can we go out there and say the sacking of Tuchel was unacceptable when what the Chelsea owners came in and did was say, we have a clear vision as to where we want the club to go. We want to be heading in this direction. And they didn't see Thomas Tuchel as that manager, and they bought somebody in who, on paper, yes, I know, on paper could be ridiculous, which is why I kind of agree with some of this point here. What the owners have done is they've gone with a man, Graham Potter, who they believe can actually fulfill the long-term vision of what Chelsea are looking to build. So, I don't necessarily agree the transfers have been ridiculous. I think the transfers have addressed a lot of the problems that we needed within the squad. And if you look at this squad, there is a ridiculous amount of talent in this squad. So, sacking Thomas Tuchel is always going to be a massive problem to some Chelsea fans, because myself included, it might well have been too soon. But the way that football is, we have to get up, we have to move on, or we start supporting another club and be a plastic fan. Graham Potter coming in, we've got to give this man some more time. I have said it countless times that maybe he's not the right man for the job. Footballer is a results-based business and we've not been getting results. If Chelsea don't get results between now and the end of the season, there is a strong possibility he won't be the right man. Players now coming back from injury and all of these new signings, there is no excuse, in my opinion, for Graham Potter not to get a tune out of these players. At least a tune that sounds remotely more beautiful than the stuff that we have seen all season long. So, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing some of your responses, because at the end of the day, I have noticed a very toxic atmosphere in the last week or so. There's always a bit of a toxic atmosphere, but something I tend to do, which I strongly advise you guys to do as well, is not to get drawn into certain energies. Come up with your own opinions for yourself. Don't be afraid to talk about it, but there is a massive cult nature on Twitter where people do jump on bandwagons. People argue with things as small as, why does he deserve a banner at the bridge and he not? Come on, at the end of the day, we're here to support this football club, Chelsea Football Club. Between now and the end of the season, we will get this right, or at least significantly better than what we've been seeing recently. I firmly believe that. Spread the positive energy out there as well. Don't just use social media as a place to go and rant and rave about the bad. Use it to praise as well, because as much as the players might buy into the negatives, they also feed off the positives as well. So, back the boys, make some noise at the bridge. Come on, you Blues.